Okay. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. We're going to talk a little bit about you and your background, and kind of cover, the grades that you teach, and the subject matter. And I know you have a little bit of a state hopping background as well, since you're located now in Tennessee, but you used to be in Michigan. So why don't you go ahead and kind of give me a brief overview of your teaching career and how you got there?
Yeah, so I went to school at Michigan State for my teaching degree, and I'm about to start my 5th year of teaching. So I taught for 1 year in Michigan, and then the other 3 years were in Tennessee. And I've primarily taught middle school, so 6th and 7th grade, and mostly science. I did teach 1 year of math too. So mostly middle school science is my experience.
Okay. And so what was it like for you in Tennessee when this coronavirus hit? Because that kind of changed the game for teachers, right?
Yeah, so we left for spring break thinking that it was just going to be a week, and then we never came back. So we had to figure out basically like immediately how we were going to keep school going, because it was like we're going to close for a week after spring break and then through the end of March, and then it became the rest of the school year. So we were like, okay, what are we going to do? So basically everyone had to become a virtual teacher like overnight. So I feel like for me, it was a pretty easy adjustment because I feel like I'm pretty good with technology, but I have some coworkers that had no idea how to make a Google Classroom, had no idea how to do a Zoom meeting. So it was a really big learning curve, especially for like some older teachers that aren't used to teaching with technology.
And you said you're a middle school teacher too. So in your experience, how did that, from the teacher standpoint, obviously it's one experience, and then like what did you see in your students already? Because you had the opportunity to know them in the classroom, and then switching to completely virtual. I imagine that wasn't exactly a smooth transition either, right?
No, it wasn't. And you got to think about middle schoolers. And if you're an 11 or 12-year-old kid, your top priority is not completing schoolwork. Like, you are at home, you want to eat snacks and watch movies and play video games. So it was a really big struggle getting the kids to even complete the work. And we couldn't make any of the work mandatory because not everyone had the same access to technology. So we couldn't like say you have to get all this work done or you're going to fail, because that's not fair to the kids who didn't have a computer at home. So the kids knew that it wasn't going to be counted, and they were like, why should I even do this? So it was definitely a big struggle.
Okay. And then you kind of transitioned into summer. So now we're on August doorstep, which is still crazy to me. I've kind of been living in this pandemic bubble for the last 4 months. It's hard to even remember what day it is a lot of times. But in your area, what does that look like for you coming back? Are you coming back to the classroom? Are you doing virtual? I know some people are doing a mix of both. Like, what does that look like for you?
So we actually start school on Monday. We start school in 3 days. And we're doing, yeah, yep, I know. We're doing a hybrid model. So half of the kids will come back Monday, and then the other half will come Tuesday. So we're only going to have half of the kids at a time. So that should make classes smaller. And then students also had the option to do all virtual. So if they didn't want to come back at all, they could do our virtual academy. So I'm teaching one virtual class, and then the rest of my sections are in person. But yes, in 3 days, I'm stepping into a school full of hundreds of children. So it is pretty terrifying.
So yeah, how do you feel about kind of doing that? And I feel like you're definitely the first person that I've talked to that's going back that quickly. Everyone else is going back in September. So do you kind of feel like a little bit nervous about that? Like, what's going on?
Well, I also live in the Bible Belt, like someone else that you would talk to. And I think down in the South, people aren't as concerned about it. Like, I don't know what it's going to take for them to like really take it seriously, but yeah, I don't feel completely comfortable with it. Like, we still have cases going up in my state. So I'm like, let's throw a bunch of kids in school and just hope that makes the curve go down. Like, that's not, I don't know. I don't think it's very smart.
And so, like, without diving too deep into it, I know I have talked to some people and they feel, a big support in their district and their community kind of banding together to kind of make this work for the kids mostly, but also to support the teachers. Do you have kind of that sense of community around that you feel pretty comfortable? And your coworkers obviously are going to be in the same boat as you. So is it one of those things where it's like, it's a little bit scary, but we're gonna try it and do it together and we have a plan? Or is it kind of like, we're gonna see what happens and we're just gonna go with the flow type of thing?
Yeah, my district has a pretty good plan, and they actually surveyed all of the families in our district before we went back. And over half of the families said that they wanted their kids to return to school. So I think the district is just doing what they think is best for the families in our community. Um, and they also surveyed the teachers, and about half of the teachers said they were comfortable going back. So um, I think they're just trying to find a happy medium, but you've got like the extremes. Like, you've got the people that signed right up for the virtual schooling. They're like, I'm not sending my kid back at all. And other parents that are really pushing for their kids to get back because kids obviously need the social interaction and they need to be around their friends. And some kids don't learn very well online. Like, they need that teacher there. Um, so I think it's nice that the families have different options. What kind of sucks is that the teachers don't really have an option. Like, we basically have to go back or quit. So I just wish there was like a little bit more of the teacher's perspective taken into the decisions, but I think that my district did the best that they could with what they what they got back from the surveys.
Yeah, and you're actually not the first person to kind of say that, just about the shifting in dynamic. But touching a little bit on the hybrid model that you'll have kids in the classroom and then you'll also be teaching virtually. So what are some of the challenges that that's going to bring you? I know, like, you spend probably a lot of your time doing curriculum and lesson planning and things like that. So how does that affect you in your day-to-day activities, and is that going to load more onto your plate? What does that look like for you?
It definitely is, because like anything that I do in the classroom, I have to figure out a way to do it virtually. So if I'm doing like especially in science, if I'm doing a science experiment or a project or a lab, like, I really have to get creative, like how my kids at home can still have that same experience. So also just like the logistical, like paperwork side of it, like how are they gonna complete the worksheets and the tests? Like, are we gonna give all of our tests at home? Like, what's gonna stop them from looking in their notes when they're taking it? So it's like there's all these different things just swirling around in my head.
Do you feel like, in that realm, do you feel like you have resources? Because obviously you taught before summer break and you had kind of an opportunity with the district and with your coworkers to kind of, get the lay of the land there. And now coming back into this hybrid model, do you feel like do you have a little arsenal of resources at your disposal? Or are you still kind of like, yeah, here are the core things we're using, but, we're still kind of, missing some things in this area? Like, how do you feel about being equipped to handle this?
I feel like curriculum wise, I have what I need. Like, I'm pretty confident in like the standards that I have to teach and how I'm going to teach them. I think if anything, it's just the student resources. Like, not everybody has a laptop, not everybody has a printer, or you might have like 5 kids at home with one device. So how are parents supposed to juggle all of that? So I think it's more it's just inequitable when it comes to the students and their access to technology.
And you mentioned kind of, for the kids that are doing online testing and things, the merit system there. So, I talked with a teacher down in Alabama, and one of his struggles was he's concerned about, if you teach virtually, cheating, right? So how do you encourage kids to be honest while they have, all of these distractions around them, and then they also have access to the internet, and there's not someone kind of standing there and saying, we can work through this together. Instead, they might be, tempted to kind of, for lack of a better term, take the easy way out. So in your experience, how are you combating that? Or are you kind of just going on to an honor system and hoping for the best?
Well, we still haven't really figured all of that out when it comes to assessments, but one thing that they did tell us was to try to make our questions that we put on our tests like non-Googleable. So not just like something that they can easily look up and find on Google, but something where they're going to really have to think and like think critically and put a response in their own words, and not just something they could easily look up. So I think if we make our questions a little more challenging, that should help a little bit. I know there's also a setting where when you give a quiz through Google Classroom, you can have it so their computer locks and they can't access any other tabs or anything. So I think that'll be good. If they're using a Chromebook, that will work, but any other computer, you can't really control that. So I think we're just going to have to see how it goes.